I'm Pat Doris. Welcome to The Story. You know, for retailers, this is a really big week. Black Friday typically kicks off the holiday shopping season, but instead of focusing on sales, retailers in our area are also keeping an eye on something else this year: theft. Portland retailers say shoplifting has risen to new levels they've never seen before, and it's tonight's big story. Rampant theft has driven some stores to reduce their hours or even close, as was the case with the Nike store on MLK. Tonight, investigative reporter Kyle Aboshi continues his look at this problem by digging into the numbers. And they show something very disturbing. In Portland, most shoplifting cases are not being prosecuted. And the criminals know it, and they know they can get away with it.
It's 8:58 on a Wednesday morning.
Never know when they're going to wake up.
And shoplifters are already stealing.
But it's insane.
Portland police officers are conducting a retail theft mission to crack down on this citywide epidemic, when suddenly a suspected shoplifter takes off from the Mall 205 parking lot in southeast Portland in a stolen truck. An officer throws spike strips.
Just spiked it again. It lost control. Get code 3 medical. It's going to go westbound on Burn, but it lost control.
The driver crashes, then goes running, but doesn't get far. She's facing felony charges. Inside the truck,
We found a whole bunch of stolen property from Target, mostly.
Police recover a bag full of clothing, tags still attached, along with cosmetics.
But yeah, it's those creams and the nail stuff. I mean, it's worth a lot of money.
The 24-year-old woman admits she sells stolen goods to anybody willing to pay.
The retail brand is $10, you get it for $5. Of course you're gonna want that, you know?
She explains shoplifting is a way to feed her fentanyl drug habit.
I could just be standing around outside smoking a cigarette, and I have people come up to me asking, literally every 9 out of 10 people ask me, hey, do you do blues? Hey, do you need blues? And
blues as in fentanyl?
Yeah, as in fentanyl pills.
There is a direct connection between shoplifting, retail theft, and fentanyl. Is that right?
Yeah.
Citywide, retailers complain theft has risen to new levels in Portland. Shoplifting has become more frequent and brazen. Videos show thieves stealing armloads of merchandise and walking right out the front door with no fear of being caught. This rampant theft has driven some stores to close or reduce their hours. Most retail insurance doesn't cover the losses.
It's an economic impact on especially small businesses.
Stephen Lynn, owner of Under You for Men, says on average, his downtown Portland store is hit by shoplifters more than a dozen times a week. And unlike most retailers, he's not afraid to chase them.
And we had a reputation in the community that you don't shoplift here. Now that reputation is totally gone. They know it's pretty much okay to shoplift. We have to put a stop to it.
So do you think in some ways it's emboldened criminals to commit more crime?
Oh, absolutely. We have situations where a shoplifter will actually just say, you're not going to prosecute me, I'm not going to go to jail.
And in most shoplifting cases, that's true. Data obtained by KGW shows so far this year, the prosecution rate for misdemeanor petty theft cases in Portland, which include shoplifting, is 46%. That means less than half of the theft 2 or theft 3 cases sent to the Multnomah County DA's office by police are charged. Most cases are dismissed. And the criminals, they seem to understand they're unlikely to be prosecuted in Multnomah County compared to other jurisdictions. This is an actual recording of a phone call between a woman being held in the Washington County Jail on theft charges and her boyfriend.
Do you want to fight it or what?
Well, I mean, if it was in Multnomah County, like, you would have got released already. It's up.
I know. It's because it's Washington County.
And when this suspect, arrested on theft charges, realized he was in neighboring Clackamas County,
Where are we going?
Clackamas County Jail. You ever been there?
What?
You ever been to Clackamas County Jail?
No.
Well,
I was at Where's the line for Clackamas? Oh, man.
I know, he screwed up.
The data shows Multnomah County DA Mike Schmidt is prosecuting far fewer misdemeanor theft cases than his counterparts. In Washington County, the DA has filed charges in 93% of the cases, and police are referring a lot more cases. Clackamas County prosecuted 84% of the petty theft cases.
Why aren't you going after shoplifting as aggressively as your counterparts?
Well, we issue cases that we can prove. That's first and foremost, and that is our focus.
DA Schmidt said the data only tells part of the story. You've also got to look at how many cases were referred by police, the strength of the evidence, and the outcome of those cases.
The numbers are not aligned. Your issuance rate is much lower than theirs.
I could issue 100% of the cases, and that might make you feel better in this interview, right? But that might be disingenuous if you don't know how all those cases end up. Am I losing cases at trial? Are cases getting dismissed down the road? So issuance is a factor, and it's an important one that we should be looking at. But you got to look at every single part of the system.
Schmidt explains those cases that are dismissed are often rejected because prosecutors don't have the evidence they need.
Frequently that means video, if there is video that exists, and any kind of reports from the loss prevention officers. We need all of that information to come to our office so that we can issue those cases.
So what I hear you saying is in some cases retailers are the ones keeping you from prosecuting these cases?
What I'm saying is that we need to make sure all of the evidence is gathered and submitted to our office. We can't find out about it later on down the line.
The situation is further complicated by the fact Portland police often lacks the resources to follow up. Critics complain that Schmidt has made Portland an attractive place to commit crimes, such as shoplifting, without fear of consequences, a notion he flatly rejects.
When you have everything you need to launch the case, we're launching them. There's no policy against prosecuting any of these cases. If we have the evidence we need, we're launching the cases.
Retailers admit theft often goes unreported. The problem has become so bad, they don't even bother calling police.
The current system's broken.
All too often, shop owners say the criminals know they won't be stopped. And even if they are, odds are they won't be prosecuted.
Kyle joins me now. We pulled these numbers out of your story. It's really amazing to see the prosecution differences. Clearly, Washington and Clackamas care about these low-level crimes. Multnomah County, not so much. And I know that you also looked at DA Schmidt's predecessor. How does he compare to that?
Yeah, we dug into that data looking to be years ago. Back to 2019, then District Attorney Rod Underhill, he prosecuted about 60% of misdemeanor theft cases. That's higher than Schmidt's 46%. So to answer your question, Mike Schmidt is prosecuting fewer shoplifting cases than his predecessor.
And what about that spectacular video of that woman? Did she get charged with anything?
She is facing charges, felony charges, but those are related to the stolen vehicle. There were no theft charges in her case, which would have been misdemeanors. Instead, police and prosecutors focused on more serious charges that could result in jail time.
It's an interesting point. So even if these people are prosecuted for shoplifting, there's typically a misdemeanor that they're charged with?
Yes, misdemeanor charges. But if you talk to store owners, that's really an important step. You've got to establish it's wrong, it's against the law, and you'll be punished even if it's, say, a misdemeanor. Now, as we've seen, there are some cases where prosecutors will actually consolidate those charges. Basically, someone committed a crime, several different episodes, right? But they'll put those together. If the losses exceed $1,000, that would then be a felony, which could result in jail time.
Okay, thank you, Kyle. Very interesting story. Now we want to know what you think. What are your thoughts on this? Should the DA in Multnomah County be prosecuting more shoplifting cases? Or are you okay with the strategy that's being taken so far? Shoot us an email, would you? The address is thestory@kgw.com, or call and leave a voicemail. The number is 503-226-5090. Moving on now, we told you it was only a matter of time before a lawsuit was filed against Oregon's Measure 114. That's the gun restriction bill that voters approved earlier this month. Well, now that time and that lawsuit have arrived. Late Friday, the Oregon Firearms Federation, the Sherman County Sheriff, and a Marion County gun store owner all filed lawsuit against Governor Kate Brown and State Attorney General Ellen Rosenblum. They want a judge to block the measure based on their view that it violates the Second Amendment. Clean and simple. But they also say if the judge does not agree the entire measure is unconstitutional, then they want the high-capacity magazine portion to be thrown out. 114 bans high-capacity magazines and creates a new permitting process to buy a gun, including safety training, a background check, and a fee. It is set to take effect in just 2.5 weeks, so time is of the essence. It's not clear when a judge would rule on this lawsuit, but we do expect it to be soon, before the law takes effect. In the suit, the plaintiffs claim millions of law-abiding Americans now own guns with magazines that hold more than 10 rounds, calling them standard issue, not high capacity. And writing, banning magazines over 10 rounds is no more likely to reduce criminal abuse of guns than banning high horsepower engines is likely to reduce criminal abuse of automobiles. And the only thing the ban contained in 114 ensures is that a criminal unlawfully carrying a firearm with a magazine over 10 rounds will have a potentially devastating advantage over his law-abiding victim. That magazine restriction is also part of 114 is being challenged as unconstitutional in California in a totally different federal lawsuit that's before the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. The Ninth Circuit has jurisdiction over Oregon, so if they rule it unconstitutional there, that would effectively slash that part of 114 here as well. But this new lawsuit also claims that 114 violates part of the Oregon Constitution, and it has nothing to do with magazine capacity. Here it is. It's Article 11, Section 15, which says, when the Legislative Assembly or any state agency requires any local government to establish a new program or provide an increased level of service for an existing program, the state of Oregon shall appropriate and allocate to the local government money sufficient to pay the ongoing usual and reasonable costs of performing the mandated service or activity. Here's a translation of all that. If you pass a new statewide law and it costs local government money to make it happen, then the state should pay for it. Their argument here focuses on the permitting process and the safety training required by that new law. They say that local police and sheriff's departments would have to hire more people to run the safety classes and that the state should pay for that. So, those are the two issues that opponents are arguing in front of the judge. They want the bill ruled invalid because it does not require state payments to the local governments and that magazine capacity issue. Over the weekend, by the way, we caught up with the Reverend Mark Knutson with Lift Every Voice Oregon. That's the group behind the ballot measure. He disputes this lawsuit's claim that 114 infringes on the constitutional rights of Oregonians, especially when it comes to the high-capacity magazines.
Those who already have them, it already says that they would keep them. They could use them on their property or at shooting ranges. So nobody's taking away anybody's guns or their magazine. This is about public safety, safe schools, safe communities, and it's been proven to save lives.
He says that when they drafted Measure 114, the Interfaith Coalition worked with gun owners and hunters and law enforcement. But in the meantime, we're back to where we were last week, waiting. We're no longer waiting for a lawsuit, of course, it's here, but now we're waiting on the judge's ruling, both on this suit challenging the entirety of 114 and on that federal lawsuit out of California that could gut the high-capacity magazine portion of the measure. We know so many of you are passionate about this on one side or the other. We welcome comments from all sides. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this recent lawsuit here in Oregon. Send us an email to thestory@kgw.com or call and leave a voicemail, 503-226-5090.
Still to come on The Story, a trip down to the KGW vault.
Unchecked pollution of water and air could menace the very foundations of our society.
Today marks 6 decades since the premiere of a KGW documentary that was one of the first environmental segments of its kind in the history of the United States. We're taking a peek into the past with help from the Oregon Historical Society when The Story returns.
Yes, we're heading into the vault tonight because of a special anniversary. Today marks 60 years since KGW first aired its documentary called Pollution in Paradise. It was written and narrated by Tom McCall, who would later become Oregon governor. Our friends over at the Oregon Historical Society gave us a heads up about today's special date. They even showed us a pretty cool note from their collection. It's the original press release announcing the premiere showing. Here's a look at that. You can see it appears the premiere was supposed to be on Halloween back in 1962, but it was actually crossed off and replaced with today's date, November 21st. The hour-long color film documentary highlighted air and water pollution, and it took 6 months to make, including 6 weeks of filming across the state. The end of the press release notes that this documentary came about because leaders here at KGW felt Oregonians needed to be informed of the growing dangers of air and water pollution. They said it was on the threshold of unprecedented population growth and industrial expansion here in Oregon, and they were right. Much has been written about pollution in paradise, but we like this quote from William Robbins for Oregon Encyclopedia. Pollution in Paradise leveraged a new political spirit in Oregon, placing environmental issues at the forefront of state politics as never before. It was one of the first environmental documentaries ever here in the U.S., and we are here 60 years later celebrating it. Of course, we can't just tease you about it without showing you the old footage. We have one of the best archives in the country in the KGW vault, so let's do that. Let's take a look back at a small part of KGW's Pollution in Paradise.
There is still an America that is wild and clean and beautiful. But there is also a dying dream of America where the waters are poisoned by the wastes of man and the breeze is strangled by the fires and fumes of civilization. No part of America still retains more of nature's original work than the state of Oregon, a paradise for those who treasure the unspoiled in sight, in smell, and sound. But who are these foul strangers in Oregon's paradise? At scores of such places along the rivers of Oregon where filth-loaded water pours from cities and from factories, the scrap fish gather, and their presence betrays water made sick and weary, water in which only the scavenger thrives. Oregon, the verdant land, where 1,000 streams bring water plentiful and clean and make possible a bounty that a nation must envy. But raw sewage on a suburban street breeds disease like hepatitis and serves shocking notice that the days of paradise may be numbered. The air of Oregon can be as sweet and fresh as its waters, but the very jobs they draw soil the air above and the waters below in numbers and ways faster than present planning and prevention can match. In government and in industry, men and dollars are put to work to keep Oregon's advantage. But in many places and in many ways, the effort is not enough, so that filth fallout costs you dollars and health.
Holy smokes, huh? And that was just 90 seconds of the documentary. The whole thing runs about 45 minutes. How about that music? It really is worth a watch, though, and you can find it right now on KGW's YouTube channel. Just search Pollution in Paradise KGW, and it should be there for you for free for your enjoyment. Working toward protecting the environment has long been important to Oregonians. When we come back, we're hearing from a hiker who took the cause all around the country in an effort to build the country's longest hiking trail. That and other stories you may have missed, plus some of your comments on our shoplifting segment when the story returns.
Now, nanoscientists at Oregon State University have developed a particle potentially capable of being introduced intravenously into the human body. From there, they can find the cancer and attack it.
So technically, by using these nanoparticles, we hit the cancer tumor from inside, not from outside.
Ole Taratula is one of the lead scientists. So far, they've found success in laboratory trials on mice with ovarian cancer. Their work showed the particles found the hard-to-reach cancer cells, and the heat created by their nanoparticles gets hotter, so is more effective than any others before.
A gymnasium turned gathering place.
Would you like some turkey?
And turkey was all the talk.
They had turkey, green beans and green bean casserole. We even have the pumpkin pie. Everything that is usually on a Thanksgiving table is here today.
This is Lieutenant George with the Salvation Army.
Today is all about bringing together a community to have a Thanksgiving meal as a family.
That tradition, one the Salvation Army Cascade Division has been giving to the North Portland community for more than 10 years.
The route? The American Perimeter Trail.
With a film crew following his finish, Rue McHenrick returned to Bend on October 8th. After more than 2 years scouting a 14,000-mile trail he wants to establish, he hiked the entire thing. I talked to McHenrick not long after his return home about the experience of circumnavigating the United States on foot, sometimes on existing trails, but often not.
So I was on trail, off trail, in the middle of nowhere, on roads, walking down a stream, walking up a stream, all over the place.
Wow, what an adventure. And if you missed any of our coverage here on The Story, don't worry. We have a free weekly newsletter where you can get all caught up. Just scan this QR code with your phone's camera. It'll take you right to a link where you can sign up. We also tell you all the time we want to see your comments, email us, that sort of thing. We actually do read them during the show here. And right now we're going to highlight a few that have come in on shoplifting during this show. Bruce says, I am very unhappy with our district attorney, Mike Schmidt. I find him uncreative and unresponsive to the needs of this city. I have been an attorney almost 50 years, and I know there is a better way than Mike Schmidt. And how about this from Patricia? As a citizen and a shopper, I'm going to do my business in Washington and Clackamas counties. I prefer to shop where criminals do not. Finally, this from Ann. This was an important story for us in Multnomah County. Thank you, Kyla Boshi, for your detailed reporting. Mike Schmidt continues to ignore so-called petty crimes which chip away at the fabric of our formerly safe community. Thanks for your investigative work. And thank you for all your comments, and keep them coming. Even if you're watching this recorded, send them to us. We'll read them, maybe even get them in the show. Keep sending your questions and comments right now to thestory@kgw.com. We're going to wrap things up right after this. The KGW Great Toy Drive is underway. We want to make it easy for you to give. You could head to kgw.com/toy and click Donate Cash right now, or anytime really. And if you make a donation online, hey, we'll do the shopping for you. And get this, if you give this week, local Toyota dealers will double your donation amount for Double the Toys. Or you can also buy the toy yourself, drop off a new unwrapped toy at any IQ Credit Union, Fred Meyer, or local Toyota dealer. Help bring a little joy to local kids this holiday season. And before we go, check it out. Portland's tree lighting ceremony is coming up at Pioneer Courthouse Square. It's this Friday. Brittany Falkers is going to MC, and Pink Martini will bring the music. It starts at 5:30, it's free, and they're even handing out gift cards to several local shops. If you can't make it there, well, you can always watch it live on kgw.com. And a programming note for you, we will not have a story on Thanksgiving or Friday, the day after this week. But on Friday, you can tune in right here, and you should, at 6 o'clock for live coverage of the tree lighting ceremony. It's going to be spectacular. That's the end of our show. Thanks so much for watching. And remember, the story, all of our stories,